Before we begin with the story, don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. It helps us know what kind of content you guys like the most and what we need to improve on. Now let's begin. I had always been fascinated by the sea. Its vast, uncharted depths held a mystery that no terrestrial landscape could rival. So, when I received an invitation to join a research expedition to study a newly discovered underwater trench in the Pacific Ocean, I couldn't resist. Little did I know, this journey would take me to the brink of sanity and beyond. Our vessel, the Abyssal Explorer, was a state-of-the-art research ship equipped with the latest technology. The crew was a mix of seasoned marine biologists, oceanographers, and a few engineers like myself. The trench we were to explore had been detected only recently, hidden beneath layers of silt and sediment, its true depth unknown. Some of my colleagues speculated that it might be the deepest part of the ocean yet discovered. The journey to the trench was uneventful. The seas were calm and the weather was clear, but as we approached our destination, a sense of unease began to creep over me. The water here was a deep, inky black, as if the ocean itself was warning us to turn back, but we pressed on, driven by our curiosity and the promise of scientific discovery. The descent into the trench was slow and methodical. Our submersible, the Deep Star, was lowered into the water, and I, along with Dr. Elena Vasquez, a marine biologist, and Captain Richard Hargrove, the pilot, climbed inside. The interior of the submersible was cramped, filled with monitors, controls, and scientific equipment. As we began our descent, I watched the surface of the water disappear above us, replaced by the ever-deepening darkness. The first few hours were uneventful. We passed through the known layers of the ocean, the light from the surface gradually fading until we were enveloped in complete darkness. The only light came from the submersible's exterior lamps, which cast eerie beams into the void. Dr. Vasquez busied herself with the instruments, while Captain Hargrove kept a steady hand on the controls. I watched the monitors, fascinated by the strange and alien creatures that occasionally drifted into view. It was around the 6-hour mark that things began to go wrong. We had just passed a depth of 30,000 feet when the submersible suddenly lurched, as if something had grabbed hold of it. Alarms blared and the lights flickered. Captain Hargrove struggled with the controls, his face a mask of concentration. "What's happening?" I shouted over the din. "I don't know," Hargrove replied, his voice tense. "It feels like we hit something, but there's nothing on the sensors." Dr. Vasquez checked the external cameras, but all we could see was darkness. There was no sign of any obstruction. Then, just as suddenly as it had started, the shaking stopped. The alarm silenced and the lights stabilized. We all took a moment to catch our breath. The sudden jolt had left us all rattled. Dr. Vasquez suggested we abort the mission and return to the surface, but Captain Hargrove was determined to continue. Reluctantly, we agreed. We resumed our descent, though the sense of unease lingered. As we approached a depth of 36,000 feet, we finally reached the trench. The sonar mapped the area, revealing steep walls and a flat, sediment-covered floor. We began our exploration, collecting samples and recording data. It was then that we saw it. At the edge of our lights, something massive loomed in the darkness. At first, we thought it was a rock formation, but as we drew closer, we realized it was something else entirely. It was a structure, ancient and weathered, covered in strange, barnacle-like growths. It looked like a temple, or perhaps a tomb, its architecture unlike anything we had ever seen. We maneuvered the submersible closer, our curiosity piqued. The structure was covered in strange symbols, etched into the stone. Dr. Vasquez took photographs while Captain Hargrove scanned for any signs of life. There were none, but the sense of unease grew stronger. We decided to deploy a remote-operated vehicle, ROV, to explore the interior of the structure. The ROV was equipped with cameras and lights, and as it entered the ancient building, we watched the live feed on the monitors. The inside was a maze of corridors and chambers, filled with silt and debris. Strange artifacts lay scattered on the floor, their purpose unknown. As the ROV ventured deeper, we began to lose the signal. The video feed became static, and then it cut out entirely. Captain Hargrove tried to regain control, but it was no use. The ROV was lost. Frustrated and uneasy, we decided to leave the structure and return to the surface. But as we began our ascent, the submersible lurched again. This time, it was more violent. The lights flickered, and the alarms blared once more. We were thrown about inside the cabin, and I could hear the sound of metal groaning under stress. "What's happening?" Dr. Vasquez shouted, her voice filled with panic. "We're being pulled," Captain Hargrove yelled back. "Something's got us." Ked at the external cameras, but all I could see was darkness. Then, out of the blackness, something massive and tentacled emerged. It wrapped around the submersible, squeezing with incredible force. The lights flickered and went out, plunging us into complete darkness. Panic set in. I could hear the hull creaking, the sound of metal bending and straining. Captain Hargrove fought with the controls, but it was no use. We were trapped. The submersible shook violently, and I was thrown against the wall, my head striking something hard. Pain exploded in my skull, and everything went black. When I came to, the first thing I noticed was the silence. The alarms were off, and the submersible was still. My head throbbed, and I could taste blood in my mouth. I groaned and tried to sit up, but my body felt heavy and sluggish. Dr. Vasquez was slumped over her instruments, unconscious, but breathing. Captain Hargrove lay motionless at the controls. I crawled over to him, my limbs protesting with every movement. I checked his pulse, but there was nothing. He was dead. Panic surged through me. We were trapped, deep beneath the ocean, with no way to call for help. I tried the radio, but it was dead. The submersible's power was out, and we were running out of air. I don't know how long I sat there, staring at the darkness, waiting for the end. Hours, maybe. Time had lost all meaning. I could hear strange sounds, faint and distant, like whispers in the dark. I tried to stay awake, but exhaustion finally claimed me. When I awoke, the submersible was moving. The lights flickered back on, and I saw Dr. Vasquez at the controls. She looked pale and gaunt, but alive. She told me she had managed to restart the backup power and was attempting to surface. We ascended slowly, the submersible creaking and groaning with every meter. The journey seemed to take an eternity. But finally, we broke through to the surface. The Abyssal Explorer was waiting for us, and we were pulled aboard. The crew was shocked to see us. We had been missing for days, and they had feared the worst. We were rushed to the infirmary, our injuries tended to, but the real scars were deeper, etched into our minds. Dr. Vasquez and I never spoke of what happened in the trench. The official report stated that Captain Hargrove had died in a tragic accident, and the ROV had been lost due to technical failure. But I knew the truth. I could still see the ancient structure, the tentacles, the darkness. I left the expedition soon after, unable to face the sea again. But the nightmares followed me. I would wake in the middle of the night, drenched in sweat, the whispers still echoing in my ears. I knew that whatever we had disturbed in the depths was still out there, waiting. And now, as I sit here writing this, I can feel it. The darkness is closing in. The whispers are growing louder. I know it's coming for me. The sea never forgets, and it never forgives. I can only hope that my story serves as a warning. Beware the depths, for there are things in the ocean that should never be disturbed. Things that are best left forgotten, hidden in the darkness. Pray you never hear the whispers, for once you do, they will haunt you forever.